Hello, everyone. Grateful to be here with you, as is the Council of Light. And today I wanted to come on and share maybe a little bit differently. I had a lot of questions, I think, coming up, and there was some feedback that we received about yesterday's free transmission. And so I just thought that maybe sometimes what I do is I assume the people who are going to watch my video are the transmissions are people that have been working with us for a while and get the way that the transmissions come through. And so I just wanted to take a moment to share a little bit of the logistics and the background. First of all, the non-judgment aspect. So what I've been cultivating for myself, Omaji, for many, many years is the ability, and actually many lifetimes, the guides are correcting me. I've been cultivating for many lifetimes the ability to be in non-judgment and the ability to engage observer mode. And when I engage observer mode and non-judgment, that's what allows me to connect to all the energetic information and not have any blinders on, or I'm blocking out certain aspects of truth, or I'm seeing through a lens that has a bias. And so I've really worked in a very, especially in this incarnation, in a conscious way. The guides are saying you've worked for lifetimes. So, okay, I'll just say I've worked for lifetimes to cultivate that non-judgment lens where I'm just observing, I'm just seeing what I'm seeing, and I'm not attached. I'm not making something right, wrong, good, or bad. And one of the reasons that is it's like an entry point and a requirement for the work that I do, for the role that I play, is that if I wasn't holding the non-judgment, number one, it would impede my ability to access all the information that's available. And number two, it would create a distortion in the fields, which wouldn't allow this work to be shared at the higher octave from a place of love, from a place of, because love is really the frequency of non-judgment. If you're in judgment, you can't be in love simultaneously. And so sometimes when I'm in that non-judgment place, it can come across to those who are going through something as though I may be being insensitive, or I'm not having compassion, or I'm not taking something seriously, or that's not it at all. I take it all very seriously. I recognize from a higher perspective what it's all for. And simultaneously, I hold the perspective that it is challenging for those going through it. So there's lots of compassion there. So I'm able to hold both perspectives simultaneously. You could say the higher dimensional lens of, I'm trying to share this in a way that doesn't come across again as insensitive, and I don't know that I can. I think it's the perception that somehow if you're not judging or taking a side, making something right, wrong, good, or bad, then therefore you must not be taking it seriously. I think there's an assumption in consciousness there. And so that's not what I'm functioning from. I'm taking everything very seriously, so seriously that I felt compelled to step forward and offer a transmission to support the healing for what was being triggered, what was being brought up, what was being presenced by the recent tragic events in the US. And so anytime that I share, before I share something, I work with myself very diligently, and my body deva very diligently, to bring within me everything to a place of completion and healing. So if there's grief there, I process it prior to addressing the collective grief or addressing grief around a particular situation or multiple situations. And that's why it can appear as though maybe that I don't care or I'm insensitive. I'm coming from it in a place of neutrality because I've processed what it did already trigger within me. I did process it. And in fact, with this current, like what just happened in the US a few days ago, I started feeling it a week prior. It was more than a week prior. And I didn't consciously know what I was feeling, but I started to process the grief a week and a half before that event actually happened. The grief wave started to present itself within me, and I honored it. I didn't have to know consciously what it was about. But that's what gave me the ability to be able to show up the way that I did as quickly as I did after the event, because there was still some layers there from the current, what was like, I could feel the collective shock, the collective unrest, the collective grief. And then some of that was my own. So I worked through those layers prior to coming live. And so what I would say is that if you're one that perceives that I may be insensitive or whatever it is, just recognize that it's not lack of sensitivity or compassion or the ability to feel. It's actually the opposite. And it comes from a very deep desire to be love in the presence of a tragedy, in the presence of an unrest, in the presence of the messy, and the willingness and the desire to show up in the most helpful way. And if I were to show up triggered, if I were to show up where I hadn't fully processed, I wouldn't be the conduit for what really wished to come through, that from my perspective and perspective of the Council of Light is the most helpful. And just for a moment, play with this idea that the neutrality is necessary for the clarity, for the ability to connect to the part of you that knows, the part of you that knows who it is as an infinite being and can access information from the past, from the future, from all places and spaces in the time spiral continuum, and recognizes the higher perspective that whatever event we experience that in the moment creates a trauma or is tragic or creates this grief wave or triggers a grief wave, it's there to support us in some way to evolve, to cultivate greater compassion, to cultivate more strength, to cultivate more courage, to activate certain desires within us. There's a higher purpose, in other words, to every single tragic occurrence. And we can easily see a higher purpose in hindsight, years and years and years later, which then we could say, well, I have clarity now why that tragedy happened or why that thing happened. And it might be after this incarnation, many, many incarnations from now, before we're able to have that clarity. But the neutrality is what allows for the clarity to come in the now. We all have the capacity for this. And a prerequisite for it is first of all, the recognition that ultimately, when we're triggered by something, part of it has to do with, like the tip of the iceberg, has to do with what's current, what's currently occurring. But then there's the iceberg under the surface. And we've been rolling around in separation consciousness for lifetimes. And this is also triggering all the stuff under the surface, not just that tip of the iceberg. So when we do sessions, we speak to the part of you that knows that. And we're not necessarily speaking to the victim or the wound or the one who's identifying as broken. We are speaking to the wholeness of you, allowing it to activate, to be remembered, so that you don't roll around in a false identification of you for longer than is necessary. And it's really brought forward from a place of love and compassion and the desire to support you in an empowered evolutionary process. Holding space for you to feel what you feel, that is important. It is important for you to feel what you feel and experience those grief waves or anger or fear in a healthy way where you don't project it externally onto another, but you allow for it to process. It helps support you in the vibrational transformation. It helps support you in the integration. It helps support you in the healing. And each one is different. Each individual is going to experience it in a different way. But what I will share is that when I looked at the layers of the empathic that I was feeling, the collective shock and the grief, I recognized immediately that it was ancient as well as current. And this desire came forward within me to support the healing of the ancient so that we weren't trying to process the whole iceberg, thinking it was just the tip of the iceberg. Because we can't really do that when we're rolling around in grief, thinking it's just about this one thing. We're trying to process the trauma out of timing, and it doesn't work as efficiently as when we address it the way we do in those types of sessions, where we pinpoint where it's coming from and we support you in collaboration with your higher self to go back in time and to heal it in the appropriate place in the time spiral continuum. It's much more gentle that way, much more empowering. So this work doesn't resonate for everyone, and that's okay. It's okay. I don't take it personally. Each one has their own path, and each of you will pick up the tools of consciousness that work for you and utilize it for as long as it's appropriate. And then you'll get new tools when those wear out or no longer feel aligned for you. But we are here for you if it does resonate, and know that it is our honor and it is our joy to support you in an empowered evolutionary process. And we're going to be actually doing another spontaneous transmission this Saturday. It's going to parlay a little bit off of the free transmission energetic. I can just see additional layers that wish to be addressed, but it will probably show up a little differently. I'm going to allow the space for that to fully ground and land before I share any further details. Sometimes I don't get further details until the day of the actual transmission, because that allows us then to take a quantum leap into what's actually being asked for in that moment, what's ripe to reinvent, what's ripe to evolve, who's taken their seat, and what is being called forth by those individuals. And so that's why every single transmission we do can feel custom for you, because it's done in the moment and it's linked in with each of your higher selves in collaboration, in healthy co-creation. So if you'd like to join us for that Empowered Evolution Masterclass, you can go to our website in the online store at embracingtheinfinite.com. It's being offered on a sliding scale, and we will also be offering an additional transmission on the 1010 Stargate Gateway. So maybe earmark your calendar, save the date to join us on 1010 as well. And we look forward to connecting with you all very soon. Much love.